Thank you for giving me this time and space to reflect on my past week almost with the JCAM staff here in Nairobi. This is my first visit to Africa, and I cannot tell you how happy I have been to have this opportunity and the invitation to speak to the child safeguarding officers here over this past weekend. For the last 15 months since I've been in post with the PCCP, I've been meeting with Beatrice online as one of the conference safeguarding delegates, and also with Father Robita as well, as he's a member of the advisory committee to the PCCP, so it's been an absolute joy to meet them in person. But it's also been really good to spend time with Jesuits and collaborators from across Africa and Madagascar who are doing this important work in safeguarding. Yesterday I listened to a number of reports from different provinces and regions, and I was really inspired by the great work that's happening. There are some tremendous teams, and I think that's fairly crucial actually, that teamwork is so important in this mission we have to support and care for the vulnerable and the young. And the teams that are working effectively are able to support each other, and that's really important. So I've heard some tremendous work about going into schools, about talking to parents, talking to children, talking to teachers. It's all evidencing that there's lots of really good practice happening within our Jesuit communities and within Jesuit works here in Africa and Madagascar. One thing that really resonated with me yesterday particularly was we've just had a global safeguarding audit of the Society of Jesus for the 73 provinces and regions. And that audit data comes to me as one of the members of staff in the PCCP, and I'm working on that analysis at the moment, and I've just finished my first coding. What I realised yesterday was within the audit there was so much good practice that we didn't capture because we were very focused on what policies and procedures were in place. So yesterday's opportunity to meet with them and hear about the great work that's happening has really enhanced that audit experience. And I'm left wondering how we can capture this, not just in JCAM, but in the other 5 conferences of the Society of Jesus. That would be really important. Today I've been talking to the CPOs and the Jesuits and their collaborators about responding to victims, and that's been a very powerful day. Hopefully that's been very helpful for them. And what's become very obvious is that a number of them are already accompanying people who are struggling, people who are suffering because of familial abuse or other forms of abuse. And it's trying to support them to see that their skills, their very good pastoral skills, are transferable, and that they can accompany victims and can walk alongside them. We talked a lot about accompaniment, and I think that's a very important focus. Yesterday, Father Robita talked about the whole issue of sexual abuse and other abuse as a mystery rather than a problem, and I think that's been very helpful, and that's resonated in our discussions over the last 2 days. Going forward, of course, we need to be revising policies and reviewing them regularly. We need to be making sure that we work with transparency and professionalism. But we also need to keep very much at the heart of our work that awareness of placing victims first, and to be mindful that because of cultural issues and lots of other factors as well, it isn't just about culture. Many victims find there are too many barriers to disclosing abuse, whether current or past. That is not just an African problem. That resonates with other parts of the world as well. We cannot really ever say that we have this whole issue, these problems sorted in the West. There's still a great deal of work to be done. But again, I'd like to quote Father Robita yesterday in his opening remarks, where he said, "We are not where we were, but perhaps we aren't yet where we should be, or we need still to have quite a lot of work to be done. But the commitment that's been present over the last 2 days has given me such an awful lot of hope. So I think in exploring further how JCAM is ready to respond to allegations, how they manage cases, but particularly how they now are ready and prepared to welcome victims, to give victims a voice, and to ensure too that victims are aware that in coming forward they will be treated seriously and safely and respected, and that we recognise that every victim, particularly those harmed within a church context, sees within the sufferings of Christ and the passion of Christ their own suffering too, and that Christ walks alongside them. And hopefully that might enable them, by being heard and by being accompanied and supported, it might help them to have an understanding of the risen Christ of consolation. Because this time of year is so beautiful in Eastertide, when Ignatius talks about the risen Lord of consolation. And that would be my hope going forward, that the victims who are suffering today and are silent here in Africa, Madagascar, will find a voice to come forward and the courage to do so. And I really would love to come back very soon to Africa. The whole experience has been tremendous for me. The staff here have been really very kind and generous, and given me as many opportunities to embrace and experience various aspects of African culture, including going to the Jesuit refugee service and one of the Jesuit parishes in one of the poorer areas of Nairobi, and that has been profoundly moving for me and a very unforgettable experience. So I have much to thank God for and much to thank JCAM for, and indeed a great deal to process when I go back home. But this has been a huge learning for me, for which I'm really grateful.